Yeah. Yeah. Back on my bull. Back on my cool. I'm turning it up, they feeling the heat, so they searching for pools. Tripping on me cause I'm doing my thing and they hoping that I'll be the fool. Taking the game and I'm screwing it up while these boys still searching and looking for tools. Playing it cool, faking it's who. Yeah, they look mad cause I'm breaking the rules. Breaking it loose while I'm breaking some news. Give me your pride and I'm breaking that too. They ain't ahead of us. They don't compare to us. They feeling the kick cause they hearing the change like I opened the register. Flexing on tracks cause this thing is not optional. Leg day is coming, I'm jumping the obstacles. Laughing at haters, we thinking it's comical. Yelling outside like we yelling out dominoes. Always be claiming they monsters. Boy, go get you a sponsor. All of that chatting, all of that acting, gon' mess around, get you an Oscar. They calling me Terrence, I hustle and flow. They all on my line cause I'm still in the vote. Your girl all on me cause she feeling the stroke. Make them say whoa when I'm hitting my woe. Talking like I do not got it. You talking like your boy is not it. When you talk, all I hear is yappa, yappa, yada, 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 yada. Most of your favorites ain't dealing with me. Pouring it up like the end of the week. You don't let us in, we still in the keys. We coming from nothing and ending the street. Aiming at throats and taking out knees. They feeling the pressure and know they can't breathe. Winning the races and taking the places and walking they stages like it's a degree. Feel it in your veins, it's a dope flow. Got the whole game in a chokehold. They taking too long, you can't see me now. Put them in boxes like photos. Packing the bags and hitting new land. I do what I want, they do what they can. All in their way, I'm messing up plans. I'm speaking the truth, I keep it a Grant. Waiting for Zell, never will fail. Waist looking slim, she eating her kale. I'm peeping the game and playing it well. She throwing it back like it's way too exhale. Come from the pain, not chasing no fame. I come up with morals, can't slander my name. Taking what's mine and grabbing the flame. Shooting my shot and yelling out game. Know what's real when I'm giving the feel. Can't look back when you turning the wheel. Go get a doctor, I'm giving the chills. Told them to get out, grab the key and they pill. I warn them that I am a factor. Clearing the way for this tractor. Got some new goals, never will fold. Came too far just to back up. Nah, this ain't what you used to. We ain't tripping on nobody, we just moved through. You couldn't keep up, cause my steps too long. It's time to wake them up, they have slept too long. Zell. Yeah, we pull up. And we hop out. Yeah, we pull up. And we hop out. Yeah, we pull up. And we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up. And we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up. And we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up. And we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up. And we hop out. Talking about some things you was not about. Tell them we don't play like the lockout. Got me feeling like Yeezy on the dropout. Can't deal with no phonies. Flow like baloney. Ain't no game round here, homeboy. This ain't Sony. They said they gon' show me. It's in me, not on me. Ha, you don't know me. Tell the game what's up now. They hating from the bus now. Been doing this T-Pain. Drop the up, down. Oh, I'm on the hunt now. Tell me what you want now. Yeah, I do my dance when you see me in the touchdown. Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out.
Yeah, when we pulling up, my nigga, let me know. And if the haters hate, we finna let him go. Pull up, pop out, two-step, hit the torpedo. When we do our thing, homie, don't let your shorty go. Everywhere we go, we do the stupid dance. I've been doing this since Soulja Boy taught y'all the Superman. Always showing love, we play the stupid jams. Hit you with them shots and got the kind of aim that Cupid has. We ain't never scared, we don't play about it. Keep the party going, give a damn what they say about it. Gotta keep it simple, this for everybody. Ladies and the homies, it's a function, we don't care about it. Flopping in the whip, got the speakers going crazy. Black party lit, family geeking, getting waved. Grannies to the uncles, to the nieces, to the babes. We gon' get it cracking like a weekend.
Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah. They do not know what Sactown brings. When on the low, that's a Sactown thing. Talking about us, it's a bounce out thing. Must they forgot we some Sacramento Kings. Whole squad going crazy.
Welcome to Royal Rebounds TV with Calvin and Barry. Just two crazy fans of the Sacramento Kings and they sharing their opinion. so be sure that you subscribe. It's for the fans, by the fans, whether you chilling on the couch or wildin' in the stands. For laid back conversations about the Kings, subscribe here. Staying down until we come up thinking this gon' be our year. We're here, drinking beer, talking about the Kings. Be sure you subscribe so you can hear that bell ring, yeah.
What's up, Kings fans? Welcome back to Royal Rebounds, the Sacramento Kings YouTube channel for fans, by fans. Shout out to all my Kings fans out there. Shout out to all my subscribers there. Callum, Brian, Alfie, man, good to see you all. Also, Bouncer is in the house. T, Truth Shall Set You Free. And, of course, my guy Tanvir. Thank you guys all for joining in. Don't forget to smash up that like button. Hit that subscribe button. And, yes, Calvin got the new Apple Vision goggles on. Calvin, what are you celebrating?
I'm celebrating the championship, man. If the Kings weren't going to win it, this is the team to win it, right? So, shout out. We don't have any champagne in the studio, though, so I guess I'm going to take these off.
Hi, Wendy. Good to see you as well. But, yes, Calvin is right. A championship for the Denver Nuggets is a celebration for all small market teams around the NBA, teams that have built and done it the right way. And, Calvin, I guess it proves me wrong in saying that your best player cannot be a big man and win an NBA championship.
That's true. I forgot we had that conversation, actually. So
there you go.
It has been proven wrong.
So Jokic, I'm assuming, I didn't watch everything, but I'm guessing he won Finals MVP because that would make
if he didn't, it's
the most sense.
Yeah. And Jamal Murray deserves some.
And us Kings fans, we have a guy on our team called Baby Joker, a.k.a. Sabonis. Does the success of the Denver Nuggets translate over to potentially a future success of the Sacramento Kings, Cal?
I hope it does. I mean, I was saying before the playoffs even began that, you know, if the Kings really want to be a championship contender, given the roster that they currently have, that's the team to model off of, right? I mean, obviously the comparisons between Jokic and Sabonis, you know, they have a dynamic point guard who's known as more of a scorer than he is a pure point guard. And then how they fill out the rest of the roster around him. A lot of people are comparing now Michael Porter Jr. and Keegan Murray, two sharpshooting, you know, big stretch wing players. This would be the team definitely to model yourself after. Defensive-minded coach who also used to coach the Kings. There's a lot of similarities and comparisons between these two teams, and clearly Denver has proven that, you know, this recipe is going to work for success. Now, obviously, a lot of things have to change. Guys have to improve. They have to add more pieces to the puzzle, but I think the Kings are on the right track here.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams are looking at this blueprint of the Denver Nuggets as a way to do it. I look at the Milwaukee Bucks. We talked about this about a week ago, and a guy that drafted their star player. He won 2 MVP awards and then goes on to win a championship and Finals MVP. We know that Jokic won 2 MVPs with Denver, was drafted by them in the second round, and then goes on to win the championship this season. So that's definitely good. So what you're saying is Mike Malone's probably going to be looking for his Aaron Gordon this offseason.
Mike Brown.
Mike
Malone already has his Aaron Gordon.
No, what I meant to say was, I don't even know what I meant to say. But yeah, you're right. Whatever. Let's just take it that way.
Yeah, that's one of the final pieces of the puzzle, right? Upgrade at power forward, a guy that's versatile, can guard, defend, and give you a little bit offensively physical. I mean, that if they had that, they'd be very, very close to what the Denver Nuggets are right now.
Yes, they will. Shout out to everybody that's watching, and thank you guys so much. Yes, it has been a little while since we put out a podcast. We've been really busy here working and watching some amazing playoff basketball. Yes, today is the last day of the season, I guess, officially, now that it's over. The championship is gone to Denver, so congratulations to them. We got a full show for you guys today. We're going to talk about the Denver Nuggets. We're going to talk about some free agency news, what's going on, and then, of course, we're going to talk a ton about the Sacramento Kings, Dwight Howard, Sasha Vezenkov, Bobby Jackson, Davion Mitchell, some potential interest in Andrew Wiggins. We're going to talk about the draft. And then our next podcast, unless something crazy happens in the next week or so, will most likely be on Thursday the 22nd. That is the NBA draft.
Yeah, it's crazy. The championship is over, and all of a sudden, bam, time to switch into next year. The next year towards next season, and the draft is basically here already. It's wild.
And then what is it? July 6th, you go right into free agency. So
yes, and before that, you have the California Classic is going to be in Sacramento again this year. That should be exciting. Presumably Victor Wembanyama and whoever the Hornets take with the second pick will both be there as well. So a lot of exciting stuff coming in very short amount of time.
Also, hope that all our royal family members are enjoying their new emoji next to them. Callum and Alfie, I see the beer. You got the cheers there. So you guys have been upgraded for being a member for a certain amount of time. So congratulations to you all. And Callum is bringing up a great point here, Calvin. I mentioned the Kings could be looking to get their Aaron Gordon, a guy that I was not a big fan of, but he rebuilt himself, I would say.
He did.
With the Denver Nuggets, was that defensive presence. And I see some mentions here in the chat of another guy that the Kings have been rumored going after. Was one of the best defenders in the NBA. Could play the 4. The Kings have been interested in him. He has a really, really low value right now, but a really, really big contract.
I was going to say low value but high price tag.
The main difference between those two guys. But Ben Simmons, Calvin, give me your thoughts on Ben Simmons. Could he be an Aaron Gordon, not just for the Sacramento Kings, but for any team in the NBA?
Well, sure, he could. I mean, he could be more than Aaron Gordon because they're different types of players, right? I mean, similar size, both very good defenders and can, guard a multitude of positions. The similarities kind of end there, though, right? I mean, Ben Simmons has the ball in his hands a lot more. Great dynamic playmaker. Not a guy that, necessarily is looked to get 20 to 25 points a game, but that, he probably wouldn't be asked to do that or needed to do that on the Kings anyway. The answer to your question is yes, it is possible for him to rebuild his image and get back to that all defensive caliber player that he was in the NBA. I'm not going to take the risk right now if I'm the Kings, though.
Yeah, that's a hell of a risk. I'm looking here at salary cap for both the Denver Nuggets and the Brooklyn Nets. The main difference for me, Aaron Gordon's making $19 million next year. He's locked up for a little bit, dude. $19 million this year, 21 next year, 22 the year after that, and then there's an option for 22.8 the year after that, as opposed to Ben Simmons being, and both of these guys are very similar in age, 26, 27 years old. But Ben Simmons is the highest paid player by far on the Brooklyn Nets, made $35 million this year, is under contract for $37.8 the year after that, and $40 million the year after that. That's almost twice as much.
It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
It's a very big risk to take, especially for a team like Sacramento that, even if they had the available space cap-wise to do a move like that, you're really limiting yourself in a small market, in terms of filling out the rest of the roster. So that would be a huge, huge home run swing, and you could potentially strike out very badly.
Is a lot. Shout out Matthew. It's a lot of money, Calvin. It is a lot of money, but I mean, I'm looking here at the Brooklyn roster. Their 3 highest paid players are all players that I really like. Actually, they're fourth highest, maybe even 5. I mean, besides Ben Simmons, I'll just throw him in that category. But Mikal Bridges, love him. Spencer Dinwiddie, big fan. I like Joe Harris' shooting ability. Dorian Finney-Smith, good defender. But just let's talk about those top 2 guys, Ben Simmons and Mikal Bridges. Both of them are the same age. I think Mikal is probably his arc is a little bit different than Ben Simmons, right? Ben Simmons on the way down, Mikal Bridges on the way up. Mikal Bridges makes $20 million this year, 21 the year after that, and he's got 2 more years after that. I mean, what do you think it would take to get a guy like Mikal Bridges or Ben Simmons, Calvin? Because I think we can both agree that the asking price for a guy like Ben Simmons, because his salary is so high, has got to be significantly less than a guy like Mikal Bridges. And if you're the Kings, how do you weigh that out?
Well, I think it's pretty easy if you're the Kings. I mean, Mikal Bridges is reportedly not available, period. So that makes it easy right there, right? And if you're Brooklyn, I don't know why in the hell you would want to get rid of him.
Kevin Durant wasn't available a few months ago.
But that's different because Kevin Durant makes himself available. Mikal Bridges doesn't quite have that ability. I mean, he could go to the Nets and say, I don't want to play here anymore, trade me.
Trade me the Kings or I'm sitting out.
But that's not going to happen. Let's be honest with ourselves. I would love to get Mikal Bridges. I think that would be an absolute home run hit again for Sacramento. He would be one of the most perfect players that they could plug into this lineup right away. So that to me is already out the window. When it comes to Ben Simmons, there are definitely, if you just take an objective look at his game and you say, okay, if he does actually get back to playing at the level he was playing, a few years ago, it would be great for Sacramento for X, Y, and Z. But I don't really like the fit for it. And I will use the Brooklyn Nets as an example. When they got him, they already had guys that have the ball in their hands a lot. So they tried to they looked at Ben Simmons and said, okay, don't worry about all the extracurricular stuff. Just play hard defense for us, play center, rebound, all of this stuff. That's taking away some of what Ben Simmons' best abilities are. He's a great playmaker. The ball should be in his hands.
Yep.
With the Kings, you're going to take the ball out of Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox's hands so that Ben Simmons can run the offense for you. I don't like that at all.
Name another good ball handler in the NBA that can't shoot.
Ooh.
I would say Rajon Rondo, but he's pretty much out.
Oh, you're going like previous player. I can go all the way back in history.
I'm just saying, like, in today's NBA, Rondo was in the league last year, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, in today's NBA, is it possible to have a guy in your team that can handle the ball and not shoot? I mean, you could say Draymond Green could be that guy. He made some shots in the playoffs this year. Especially against the Sacramento Kings. He was draining some threes.
It's you at a
disadvantage.
The amount of people that can't shoot and play in the NBA, first of all, that's not a very big number anyway. So it's just not anymore.
Yeah, I'm just looking here at the Kings salary cap. I mean, to get a guy like Ben Simmons, it would take a Harrison Barnes sign and trade along with a Kevin Huerter or a Rashawn Holmes and a Davion Mitchell or something like that. It's a lot to give up.
It is. It definitely is a lot to give up.
But anyways, just wanted to entertain that a little bit in the comments. We are going to talk some more about the Sacramento Kings. But before we do that, Calvin, anything else you want to say about the Denver Nuggets, them winning the championship, what this means for them, what this means for Jokic, what this means for the NBA and the Sacramento Kings in general?
Wow, that's a lot. Well, I mean, look, first of all, I think you just have to congratulate Denver, right? They were one of the best, if not the best team for the longest period of time over the course of this whole year. They were the most consistent team probably in the NBA from start to finish. They were finally healthy. You got to really see what the potential of this team looks like. And ultimately it ends with a ring. And it's very, very well deserved. I mean, they've got so many great players. I love a lot of what their roster is made up of. I think they have a fantastic coach, as most Kings fans, will agree. As far as Jokic, everybody always wants to talk about, okay, well, where does this, now let's rank him. Is he a top 5 center of all time? Is he a top 10 player of all time all of a sudden? He's got a long way to go. I don't think that the accolades that and awards that Nikola Jokic will win are far from over here. I mean, we could easily see him win another MVP or two. He could win another 2-3 rings depending on how healthy and together this team stays.
He's very healthy.
He's very healthy. I mean, this is just the beginning for him. So trying to already put him, corner him in the market, so to say, in terms of ranking him as a player, I think is very premature. What I will say about him is he proved myself and a lot of people wrong, I think, in this postseason. We all know how great he was offensively, or how great he is offensively, and how unique of a player, how unstoppable he is, difficult to guard, all of that stuff. But defense has always been the question mark with him, right? Now, I'm not saying all of a sudden he's an all-NBA defender or a guy that you can consistently rely on to get stops. But even if you're not a great defender, if you want to win in any league, but especially in the NBA, you've got to learn how to do it on both ends. And he has done that. Now, yes, it helps to build a better team defense around him, right? But I forget if it was game 4 or game 3. He had something like 7 deflections, 3 steals. You have to – Steph Curry was the same way. Not a good defender at all when he came into the NBA, but he worked hard to get to it because he knew in order to win, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, he got a lot of flack
and Jokic
for not being
has
a great
done the
defender,
same
too.
thing. So I think that Jokic will be definitely an all-time great player when it's all said and done, and we're just right in the beginning of his kind of prime starting now. So
yeah, I know I asked a lot in that previous question, but I mean, for me, yes, I was rooting for Miami, but I was also rooting for Denver. I'm just happy that the Lakers were not in it. We got some fresh new blood in there. The Warriors were not out there. So I was really happy. Either team that won, of course, it would be awesome to see an 8th seed win the NBA championship in Miami. That would have been great. But I'm also happy to see a team that's never been there, never done it ever before. A team that I rooted for a lot when they had Carmelo Anthony, Kenyon Martin, a lot of those players, Chauncey Billups, J.R. Smith. Really, really fun moments. And I played a lot of 2K with the Denver Nuggets. So I always root for them. Just congratulations to them. Congratulations to their fan base. You mentioned Jokic and what this means for him and his career. I think he's definitely in the conversation now for top player in the league. A lot of people wouldn't have put him in that category a year ago or maybe even further. So he's definitely kind of cemented himself in there. And then kind of the last question, what does this mean for the Sacramento Kings? Throwback to Kevin Garnett, but anything is possible. That's what it means for the Sacramento Kings, Calvin. And for any small market team in the NBA, the days of super teams seem to be behind us. Although we still have to play a Golden State Warriors team with like $100 billion in salary. It's good to see some other teams sneaking in here and making some stuff happen. So I see this as very, very positive for the Sacramento Kings.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think we're past the realm of possibility now, right? I mean, because we just talked about all the comparisons between the Kings and the Denver Nuggets, or, possibly more comparisons if you were to add a couple of pieces. Seeing the Nuggets break through and win the title here as a healthy squad, it should move you past the realm of possibility into more of a reality or realistic goal now.
Well, I see a couple people here in the chat talking about Himmy or Jimmy Butler. So before we move on, Calvin, what does this loss mean for the Miami Heat? I mean, they're the 8th seed, so it's like, okay, well, we lost to the 1 seed, whatever. But I believe last year they were the 1 seed.
They were.
For like most of the year. They had been in the finals just a couple years ago and lost to the Lakers. Now Jimmy Butler's 0-2 in the finals. Yes, they didn't have Tyler Hero. But what does this mean for Miami?
It means that they're very close, right? I mean, this is a team that's been in the Eastern Conference Finals 3 out of the last 4 years. They've been in the NBA Finals 2 out of the last 3 years, something like that. It means that they are on the doorstep of winning. I mean, it's really hard to break through and win that first one. Now, yes, the Nuggets were able to do it in their first time playing in the finals, and Jokic his first time, all of that stuff. But, some team is always going to lose. I mean, I kind of look at this the same way I look at the Boston Celtics. Just because they failed to make the NBA Finals this year, everybody, or not everybody, but some people are saying, oh, it's time to blow it up. The Celtics are done. They can't break through. They can't win it. That's just premature, in my opinion. You've got a chance. You have a team that is good enough to get you there. You just have to keep tinkering and adding a couple more pieces here and there, adjusting the roster. Something like adding Kevin Love this year. I'm not saying that they made the finals because of Kevin Love, but you've got a team that's good enough to get there. You just have to keep on trying. I think we're in this, age now where everything has to happen instantaneously, and success and all that stuff has to come so quickly. But they're a great team, and they've got some really good players and a great coach. They're close. They just have to keep on trying.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have one of the best coaches in the NBA. Probably, what is he, the second longest tenured coach in the NBA?
I think he is.
Behind Popovich. I think Popovich is the only one that's had a job longer than him currently. But they have an aging roster. Yes, you have young guys like Bam Adebayo, 25, and Tyler Hero, who's 23. But Victor Oladipo, we saw him have another injury.
Yep.
He's in his 30s. Duncan Robinson's about to turn 30. Kyle Lowry's 37. Jimmy Butler's 33. Kevin Love is 34. He's an expiring contract. Udonis Haslem, this is his last year. He's 43 years old. That's crazy. Didn't get a lot of minutes.
He hasn't been playing for a while.
But I see a young guy on this team, Calvin. He's 20 years old. He goes by the name Nikola Jovic. Can he
also
be
from Serbia,
the Jokic that this team needs to make it happen? He's 20 years old. He's under contract for 3 more years. This was his rookie season. Can he do it?
Well, can he be Jokic? No, because they're not the same player. He's not a center. He has a perimeter game, but he's a young guy with a lot of upside, so we'll see. But you're right. I mean, most of their top players or their best players, are getting towards the latter stages of their career, and a lot of their supporting cast. We're going to touch on free agency here in a little bit. They've got a lot of interesting decisions to make this summer. Gabe Vincent is a free agent. I think Max Strus is a free agent as well. So, yes, they have, the main 3 or 4 guys locked up, but part of the reason they made it as far as they did this season was because they got contributions from those other guys. So,
and those
it's going to be
guys
an interesting summer for them.
We're each making $1.8 million.
Yes, that helps.
They're going to have to make a lot more than that to stay. Yeah, tough loss for the Miami Heat, but hey, go to the beach, guys. I mean, you're in Miami.
I know, South Beach.
Yeah, go to the beach.
And no, Callum, Spoelstra has not been the Heat's head coach longer than Popovich. Popovich has been there since 98?
Yeah, I was thinking
99?
97, something like that. But Spoelstra wasn't there for the Shaq
Pat Riley
right?
was the head coach of the Heat in 2006 when they won. Was it 2006?
Yeah.
Oh, then Mike Malone. Yes, he has. But we were talking about longest tenured in the entire league. I believe Spoelstra is number 2 in that category.
Yes, I can't think of anybody else. I mean, all the older guys like Jerry Sloan is gone, George Karl's gone. Yeah. I can't really think of anybody else. So, hey, there's that. All right. Any last thoughts on that before we move on to free agency?
No, I mean, I'm not surprised that the Nuggets won. I'm also not surprised that they won in 5 games. Miami has literally had their back to the wall for pretty much the entire season, let alone the postseason. And it was a great run for them, but they just ran into an unstoppable force, and it's well-deserved. Congratulations to the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, congrats to the Nuggets. Jimmy Butler ran out of gas, and I think we can finally quiet down that rumor that he was Michael Jordan's son. Obviously not, Calvin. He's 0-2 in the finals now. So,
yes, that doesn't sound like Michael Jordan's son.
Even though both of his sons
never made the NBA, but yeah.
Oh, man, I don't even want to go into the Pippen stuff. Anyways, let's move on. So, NBA free agency is coming up pretty soon, less than a month away. Like I said, July 6th, we're going to be doing a special here on the channel. But, Calvin, crazy that we're talking about free agency before the NBA season had even ended, but there's quite a few things that came up in the past week or so. You want to highlight some of those?
Well, of course, there's always the list of rumors is longer than anything, really. I mean, you're just going to constantly hear people's names coming up. But one of the first major dominoes fell, I believe it was yesterday, and that's Fred VanVleet declining his player option to return to the Toronto Raptors for, I think it was $22-something million. So he is going to be officially an unrestricted free agent going into free agency in a couple of weeks here.
Wow.
But I think the most, it feels like every time there's a draft or every time there's a free agency, it's always like, oh man, there's going to be so much action happening, so much player movement, trades, all of this stuff. And sometimes it does actually happen like that, but man, usually it doesn't. Like it just, the first 10 picks go exactly in order. You usually know who's going to be drafted. I feel like this summer, just like I said repeatedly throughout the course of the regular season, it's going to be a bloodbath pretty much. All these teams are going to beat each other up. There's going to be a lot of contending teams, or teams that at least, have a chance to A, make the playoffs, and B, win a series or two. I think we are on the precipice of a very, very huge NBA summer. Wow. I think there's going to be a lot of movement. There's a lot, like I just said before, there's a lot of contending teams, or teams that think they're on the verge of becoming a contending team. There's a lot of pretty balanced rosters out there as well. But every team is going to be trying to find that missing piece, that extra piece of the puzzle. And that goes from the top, 2, 3, 4 teams in the NBA all the way down. So there's also a lot of big names that are available right now. Whether it's going to be via sign and trade, or just free agency, I think you're going to see a wild first 12 hours there of free agency.
Wow. I think kind of like what happened during the trade deadline, there's going to be a lot of movement, and I credit that to a few different things. First off, in the past few years, we've seen so many different teams go to the NBA Finals. This isn't the Golden State Warriors against the Cleveland Cavaliers every single year. I mean, we have teams like Phoenix who made it to the finals, failed, right? They made a big deal at the deadline bringing in Kevin Durant. What are they going to do? Are they going to have to make another move? You have teams like Golden State, right, that has a huge salary cap implications. They failed this year early, right? They lost in the second round. What are they going to do? You have teams like the Boston Celtics that went to the finals last year. They didn't make it. You have Milwaukee. You have a ton of teams that are fighting to get back and try and get over that hump and win the championship. You mentioned the Raptors. They won a championship just a few years ago.
Yep.
They're kind of in the middle of, I don't know if it's a rebuild, a blow up. I don't really know what they're doing. And then, of course, you have teams like the Washington Wizards that you never know what they're doing, whether they're rebuilding. Is this the year that Bradley Beal finally gets out? We don't know.
There is a rumor that there's always a rumor this time of year about them, but it sounds like this might be the year that they actually hit the reset button and blow it up.
Then you have teams like Sacramento, right? First time you made the playoffs in 16 seasons. Are they going to make a move? They have the resources. They have some cap space. Yes, they need to re-sign Sabonis, but what can the Kings do to try and get up a leg up on some of these teams? When the Lakers got eliminated, we heard LeBron say, hey, maybe – I don't think he's going to retire.
He's not going to. But I bet you he did think about it.
That was a little bit out there, right? You have guys like Kyrie Irving that got traded to Dallas. What the hell is Dallas doing? They got one of the best players in the NBA, and Luka Doncic, and they haven't surrounded him with enough talent. If anything, they brought in a guy that does the same thing as him, and they gave up a bunch of defenders. We heard about Kyrie trying to bring LeBron to Dallas. So you're right, Calvin. There is a lot of things. Not to mention Miami, what happened today. There could be a lot of buyers at this trade deadline. We heard rumors about Karl Anthony Towns potentially being available. And then what's going on with Chris Paul?
Well, Chris Paul was waived by the Phoenix Suns a few days ago.
Wow.
Big news.
Wow. Was he officially waived?
I believe so.
Okay. Because I heard that they might waive him, but they were going to look for a trade first. Maybe they couldn't find a trade.
I think that they officially released him, but I could be wrong about that. But already there's so many teams, as you would expect, to be rumored in on him, and it's all going to be, contending teams. The Lakers and the Celtics are the first two teams that come to my mind.
Not officially waived yet.
Oh, not officially waived yet. Okay, interesting. Well, it's going to be very difficult, I think, to find a trade partner for him with that big price tag. Especially considering the teams that, he's going to want to play for first and foremost probably aren't going to have a lot of money to spend anyway, or at least, not be able to add he's making what, $30 million?
The next 2 years, $30 million each
30
year,
million.
but they're both partially guaranteed.
Right.
Interesting.
So yeah, he I think is on the track here to become an unrestricted free agent, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah. We've seen a couple teams that he's potentially been rumored with, of course, the Lakers to join his buddy LeBron. We've seen the Golden State Warriors in there and a couple other squads.
I mean, you can really pick any team that made the playoffs this
Yeah.
year. They're probably going to at least inquire about what it would take to get him, right?
I'm thinking New Orleans, Calvin.
Yeah.
I saw somebody in the chat earlier agrees with me. I think it only makes sense for him to go back where it all started. And, of course, they could use a little bit of help, too. That's another team we didn't even mention that underperformed this year.
Yeah.
That we had our sights set for them. We were like, this team's going to be incredible.
Yeah, and now they've got a lot of questions to answer this offseason as well, and Zion Williamson has a lot of questions to answer personally.
Yep.
Memphis is another one of those teams that you
Wow.
thought they were going to be rocketing, towards the top.
Yep.
And ascending for years to come, but now, they're in a bit of a predicament. How do
I
they move
forgot
forward?
about
We
them.
still are waiting to find out what the official suspension is going to be for John Morant. I have no idea when that's going to come now that
Tomorrow.
probably tomorrow, maybe the next day. They'll definitely want to get it out before the draft, right? Because they don't
Yes.
want to have all of that clouding draft day. So it should be coming swift here.
I definitely want to talk about that. So let's circle back to that. But I see somebody in the chat here bring up, and it's Alfie Man, bring up Bob Myers. Let's talk about the Warriors for a little bit. Bob Myers is not returning.
Yeah, I
as
got to
the
hand it
GM.
to you. You called it.
Yeah, he's not returning as GM for the Golden State Warriors. I mean, what does that mean for this team, Calvin? They have a lot of decisions to make. You got Draymond Green with a $27 million player option for next year. Of course, we know he has a great relationship with Bob Myers. A lot of these players do. But this team has been kind of kicking the can down the road the past couple years of the salary cap implications. Mm-hmm. They owe a ton of money to a lot of people. I'm looking here at their salary cap. It's incredible. You got Jordan Poole's max extension kicks in next year, $28 million for next year, 27 for Draymond, 24 for Wiggins, 43 for Klay Thompson, 51 for Steph Curry. I mean, I'm just looking a little bit further down. Calvin, 2025-2026 season between Jordan Poole and Steph Curry, those are your 2 point guards. So your 2 point guards are making $93 million.
That's crazy.
That is absolutely
Crazy.
ridiculous. So, Calvin, I mean, you and I were extremely high on the Warriors and what they've been doing. Love Gary Payton. Love Kuminga. Love Moody. I thought bringing in Dante DiVincenzo was a big move for them. I like Pat Baldwin Jr., but this team's getting older. They haven't really bridged the gap. We saw them give up on Wiseman in the deal to bring back Gary Payton. And then now that Bob Myers is gone, what do you think happens with this Warriors team this offseason?
Well, not much, to be honest with you, and that's for a couple of reasons. First of all, they've already got most of the roster under contract for next year. You already mentioned they don't have very much money to spend outside of that. Draymond Green, the player option, that's probably the biggest question mark for them right now. Does he opt in? Does he not? If he doesn't opt in, is he expecting to re-sign with Golden State for a long-term deal? Are they able to even put that together? How much luxury tax are they really willing to spend? All of that. But I think for the Warriors in the short term, look, again, Andrew Wiggins missed a lot of games during the regular season this year. Klay and Steph have both missed a bunch of games over the past few years. They're finally both looking to be healthy for the long run here, or at least, for a foreseeable future. And then you mentioned not being able to bridge the gap between the old and the new players. They brought back Gary Payton. Jordan Poole is under contract. Moses Moody is under contract. Kuminga is under contract. They still have a chance to bridge the gap. The question is, are they going to do that? And so I think whoever comes in to run this team now that Bob Myers is gone, in the short term, that person doesn't really have a ton of work to do, right? Their roster's pretty much set for next year. I don't see how they can make that many changes unless it's something like Chris Paul is going to come play there for the vet minimum or something like that, and they get really, really lucky in that aspect. But for the long term, that's a very difficult roster to tangle with, and whoever is going to be the new GM there, maybe this year is not like a super pressure cooker year, but 2-3 years from now, that's going to be an incredibly difficult job to try to manage all of that stuff with presumably Steph Curry still playing at a high level but making $55 million or more per year.
Yeah, this is an interesting year for the Golden State Warriors for me, and I think it all comes down to who takes over as the GM and what their agreement is with the owner. Do they bring somebody up internally that they just promote, or do they go outside and hire and bring somebody in? They have a lot to work with. Do they want to kind of put their stamp on the team right away, or do they want to just step back, kind of what Monty did when he took over in Sacramento? Just let it kind of play out and then be like, okay, it's my turn to kind of do something. You mentioned a lot of guys are under contract for next season, but you do have guys like Dante DiVincenzo that's got a $4.7 million player option. He's probably going to opt out. Depends on what happens with Draymond Green, $27 million. He could opt in. And then if you are the new GM taking over, let's say both of those guys do opt in. Do you look at it and you say, okay, we're just going to play this year out. We're going to give them one last dance, as the documentary goes, and see what happens, see if they can get back to the finals? Or do I start trading guys while they still have value? Do I trade Draymond Green while he has value? Do I trade Dante DiVincenzo? What happens with Klay Thompson? Are we just going to let Steph Curry ride off into the sunset? The dude's 35 years old right now. And yes, his game does age well because he's a great ball handler and can shoot the lights out, but he's got to stay healthy. And the older you get, the more injuries you tend to deal with. So it will be a very, very interesting season for the Golden State Warriors, Calvin. And I could see them having a pretty mellow offseason and everything coming to a head maybe around the trade deadline if they decide we're not where we want to be.
Yeah.
If they have another horrendous record on the road like they did last year, they could just hit that reset button halfway through the season.
They could. They could also not, though. I mean, just because we said a lot of those same things this year about them, right? Like, this has definitely got to be the end for them. They can't win on the road. These guys are getting older, all this stuff. And then what do? They find a way to get into the playoffs, and they break the Kings' heart in 7 games. And they were competitive in that Lakers series as well. So I think it's a very difficult decision to make, if you're in that front office, because not only do you want to, if you're in the front office there, you want Steph Curry and Klay Thompson to retire as Warriors, right? I mean, and even Draymond probably to a certain extent.
You also just spent a bunch of money on that new building.
Yeah, how much of that are you willing to or how much future success maybe are you willing to sacrifice in order to give those guys their moment in the sun or whatever? And
how much
and
is
how
a ring
quickly
worth
does that come
to you? How much?
Would you
put a
ring
monetary value on an NBA championship ring?
Not as a player.
No, but like as an owner. So like what I'm getting to is you're like, okay, these guys won us this many championships. I'm willing to just pay for them to play here until they retire. Because I already got my value. I already extracted my value out of that.
I mean, I think honestly, I think it would depend on which franchise you own, right? Yeah. I mean, they're one of the most valuable franchises, not only in the league, but in North American sports. That new stadium, as they say, prints money, right? So they're in a different position than, if Chris Paul had played his entire year or career in New Orleans or something like that. I think that definitely is a factor.
There's one thing I got to say about the Lakers, and guys, this is the last positive thing I'm going to say about the Lakers here on the stream. I think a lot of players really respect the Lakers because you see them trading young players, but they don't really trade their older guys, right? Guys that have won with them, that have done a lot. They kind of let them ride off into the sunset. We saw it with Kobe. We're seeing it now with LeBron. And we saw it with quite a few other players, unless they like demand a trade out, like Shaq or somebody like that. Yeah. But there's a lot of like NBA greats that went to the Lakers later on in their careers, and they stayed with the Lakers and they retired with the Lakers. And I think a lot of players see that as okay, this is my last ride or whatever. I'm going to go to the Lakers and they're going to take care of me. Do the Warriors want to have that same kind of attitude to attract big name players in the future? I'm not quite sure, but that might be something to consider.
Definitely. I think you also have to take into account how much success and how long do you have to be good for in order for your franchise to have that reputation, right? I mean, the Lakers have been winning titles since the NBA began.
That's very true.
The Warriors have not. So
it's very, very true. Okay, last question here before we move on, Calvin, and that's from Callum here. Is Clay washed?
No, he's not washed.
But?
Well, his skills are diminishing, yes. Okay. I mean, he's still a great shooter. He's still a good scorer overall. But part of what made him such a great player was his two-way ability. And that, even if he still is able to guard well, you know, on a NBA standards level, he's not going to be the same type of player that he was even without the injuries, right? I mean, you look at LeBron James, that's one of the best defensive players I've ever seen in my entire life, maybe the best. I still would take Jordan probably, but LeBron is definitely top 3 or 4 defensive players ever to play in the NBA.
Yeah.
He can barely play 2 possessions in a row now. I mean, yes, he's 38 years old, but that just happens to everybody. So is Clay washed? No, he's not washed. But he's not the same player he used to be.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm happy that he was able to return from the injury, happy that he won a ring to prove all the haters wrong. But for me, it was always like, this is Klay Thompson's abilities, right? And then this is his ego, right? And they seem to kind of have gone like this a little bit, Calvin. His ego's gotten a little bit bigger. He got a little bit louder. He's not quiet Klay anymore.
That's true.
And at the same time, his abilities have diminished.
He's Captain Klay now.
A little bit as well, yeah. So, I don't know, $40 million is a lot for Klay Thompson. If I'm the Warriors, if I'm a Warriors fan, maybe I say let's ride it out one more year, see what this group can do.
$40 million is a lot, but I still think there are many worse options you could have as your starting 2 guard than him right now in the NBA.
Who are you starting next year, Jordan Poole or Klay Thompson?
You might start them both.
Because Jordan Poole he did not play well this year in the playoffs.
He did not play well in the playoffs, no.
All right, moving on. So I want to talk about what's going on with Memphis. But before we do that, any other free agency news, ideas, things you want to talk about? Yes, we're not going to be, talking about a ton of free agency stuff for the Sacramento Kings, even though once we get into that category, we have a few names we're going to talk about. But we need to let the NBA draft happen and kind of figure out what things are going. Yes, we're going to hear more rumors and more stuff that comes out. But anything else you've been hearing lately in the rumor mill?
Well, there's a lot of rumors around James Harden right now, obviously. I mean, he does have a player option still available, but there's a lot of belief that he will opt out. Houston, for some reason, I know he loves the city, but I don't know why the hell you would go there as a basketball player at this stage in your career, if you want to win anyway. But yeah, money talks. I get it, but it just makes no sense to me. But I'm not James Harden. So
what's up, Double O?
Houston has been rumored in on him. Phoenix is all of a sudden rumored in on him. They're going to be rumored on everybody, though, because that's what Phoenix has become. And I think that there's just a ton of players available, like Kyrie Irving, big name players available. Kyrie Irving, who knows what's going to happen with him? How many people are actually going to be willing to make a big-time offer on him outside of Dallas, right?
Dallas, they said they're going to offer him the max, is what I heard.
That's what I'm saying.
And they're kind of forced to.
Other than that, though, is any team going to really make a big bid for him? There are a lot of teams that can't afford to make a big bid for him.
Here's a team
unless it's going to be a sign and trade
that I haven't even mentioned. What about Memphis?
there's so many interesting storylines. If you look
Kyrie's
at
crazy,
what
but
teams
he's
are gonna
not
do,
showing
right?
guns. And
That's true. I mean,
is he an upgrade over John Morant?
Kyrie Irving, if he plays 70 games, yes.
Okay. That's
But
interesting.
I don't know if he's going to play 70 games. Well, John Morant, we know, is not going to play 70 games, but.
Oh, maybe.
Oh, there's no way.
You don't think he gets a 12-game suspension?
No way. No way.
All right, well, let's segue right into that, Calvin. So I'm predicting the NBA makes an announcement this week on the John Morant suspension. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, maybe they'll give him a couple days to, let Denver enjoy it.
When's the parade in Denver? It'll
That's
probably
a
be
good
the day
question.
after that.
That is a good question. But Calvin, I mean, we have no idea what this team is going to do. And I think they have no idea what they're going to do right now until the NBA makes this decision, or at least vocalizes this decision. But what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think at least if you believe what Adam Silver says, they've already made the decision about how many games it's going to be. And I don't know if he has informed the NBA Players Association what that number is or what the total suspension will look like. And I don't know if they've come to a mutual agreement on that. But from the league standpoint, I think they already know what it's going to be. And I expect it to be at least half the season. I really do think that it's going to be a very, very severe punishment.
Yeah. I'm thinking it's going to be...
I don't think it'll go over 50 games. That would be probably the max I would put it at. But
I feel like it might be the whole year. I'm not saying that that's what I'm rooting for, but I'm just thinking in terms of like 3 strikes and you're out, right? That's like the normal saying is 3 strikes and you're out. He already had this issue happen once. We're not even talking about what happened with the kid and the mall incident and what happened outside the arena. Those are like all these other incidents. I'm just talking about the club incident and the one in the car, both involving guns that he's flashing on live, whatever. Apparently his camp is claiming that this gun is a toy gun. I don't know if that matters to me, Calvin, because I'm like, why are you driving around with a fake gun, play gun in your car and flashing it? I don't know. But I'm just saying the first time they met, and I think that they had, I'm talking about Morant and Silver, I think they had a pretty good conversation about what the implications of what you're doing means, what your impact is on young people and on the league. You're going to be the new face, blah, 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 this, that. And this can't happen again. Of course, it does happen again, right?
Yep.
And Adam Silver seemed to be more surprised than everybody that it happened again, right? So if I'm looking at first time, what was the first suspension?
8 games.
8 games. So if I'm looking at 8 games for first suspension, we're going to do this like a math problem. So we're going to skip number 2 and we're going to fill that in, right? That's X. Okay.
Oh man, here we go.
So if it happens a third time,
that's why.
Is that, well, I'm just saying, if it happens a third time, is that banned from the league? Is that lifetime suspension? Like what is...
I don't know. I think a lot of it depends on what this suspension is, right? I mean, if you suspend somebody for an entire season for this, and they do it again, then you could see going to you're done, you're out forever from there.
How many times do you think Adam Silver is willing to let this incident happen? I guess that's a better way to put it, right? 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. Not 1, not 2,
not 1,
3.
not 2. Well, I mean, that's the thing is how many times has it already happened? Like, because you just listed 4 or 5 instances that
the NBA is not even
that's
considering.
all within the span of like a year.
Yeah, but the NBA is not even considering that. I'm just saying in the incidents that they've, they're probably saying, okay, if this happens again, this is not acceptable. This is what it's going to be, right? But they have to have a limit to like, okay, if this guy's flashing a gun every weekend on his IG, like there's going to be a point where he's out of the league. So is that the 4th time?
Think so.
Is that the 5th time? Is that the 3rd time? I'm guessing that's the 3rd time. And
probably.
so by that being 3rd time, whatever the suspension is for the second time, and hopefully people are following me because I'm all over the place. First, second, third, fifth, eighth, ninth. The second suspension has got to be so significant that if he ever does it again, he's out of the league. And so that, for that reasoning, I think it's going to be 50 to 80 games. Wow. Potentially a season.
I mean, I can't really argue with your logic there. You know, from a moral standpoint and a business standpoint, absolutely. I agree with all of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really tricky because, you know, I try and look at things from multiple different angles. And, you know, like I heard some people saying like, oh, what? Guns are legal. What's wrong with him having a gun? You know, and I'm like, okay, I kind of understand that too, right? Like, well, if he's got a gun that's licensed and he has it, you know, I'm not for flashing it on your Instagram. I've never done that. But I've had guns before. I've played with guns before. I've had some fun with guns. But it's all the other stuff, which I don't know if the NBA is allowed to use that in their determination. But when you hear, you know, like fool me once, fool me twice, and you're just hearing about all these things. Okay, you pulled it on a security guard at a thing. You pulled it on a kid at your house. You're shining it at people outside the arena. Like all these things, I'm just like, wow, this is bigger than just flashing a gun on IG.
Yeah, I think it absolutely is. And we're probably going to find out just how big it is here real soon within the next few days or whatever.
Yeah. Crazy, crazy times. We'll see what happens. Hopefully Ja can figure it out because he is a really, really amazing basketball player. A lot of fun to watch. A lot of fun to watch. And what was that? What was the show about the rookies that he was on with like him and Kobe White? And do you remember that show? It was on NBA TV where they were following the rookies around on his rookie season. You remember they were following all the rookies around? Oh,
I think they do that every year, don't they?
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't know. I haven't really seen much of that show.
I was watching him on that show when he was a rookie, and I really enjoyed him. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. All right, let's move on, and let's talk about your Sacramento Kings. But before we do that, guys, smash up that like button, hit that subscribe button. We are live after every single Kings game. And yes, there aren't any Kings games right now. But we will be live if there's any big news, any big announcements, stuff like that. We'll be doing some periodic podcasts here throughout the summer. I'm going to be doing some traveling in August and September. So we'll see how we can fit them in then. But let's talk about the Sacramento Kings, Calvin. And before I do that, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, a win for the Denver Nuggets today was a win for all small market teams in the NBA.
Light the beam.
Fire the laser! There we go. Forgot to remove that from the bottom there. That's nice. Wow, big, beautiful purple beam. I still got videos, Calvin, on my phone from game 1 of the playoffs. In the beam, I just look at, whenever I get down, I just look at the beam.
Right?
Makes me happy. It's been too long. It's been too long.
I saw the beam make an appearance, or not the beam itself, but the phrase "light the beam" on a national commercial that had nothing to do with the Sacramento Kings. It was just about the NBA and basketball in general. So you know it's a big deal now.
I love it. All right, let's talk about your Sacramento Kings. A bunch of things in the news right now. First off, Calvin, let's talk about Dwight Howard. 12. You remember that old commercial? Yeah. That was great. Dwight Howard's been playing overseas since, last season. He did win a title with the Lakers just a few years ago. Calvin, he's mentioned that he wants to play for the Sacramento Kings next season. Give me your thoughts.
It's interesting, right? I mean, we talked about throughout, it felt like every show and every game this year was how the Kings don't have any size. They don't have a backup center. They don't have any rim protection, all this stuff.
Check.
I mean, he's not the defensive player of the year that he used to be.
He's in Taiwan.
But he doesn't have to be. Yeah, well, Taiwan's not the NBA.
Oh, man.
It's a very interesting topic, right? Because, look, I don't think the Kings are going to go out and spend buku dollars on, a ton of guys this year. That's
wow, I haven't heard that in a while.
unrealistic, right? So here's a guy that you could probably get at a discount, would fill a position of need, doesn't have to play 40 minutes a night.
Yep.
Veteran presence, championship experience, all of that stuff. There's a lot of things to like about what Dwight Howard would bring to a team like Sacramento that's on the come up, so to speak. I still think that I'm going to vote they go in a different direction, but it's an interesting debate to have.
It definitely is. I mean, I'm just going to put it right here, man. I loved watching Dwight Howard in Orlando with my guy, Hedo Turkoglu. I had so much fun watching Dwight Howard. I loved watching him in the dunk contest with the Superman costume on. Of course, it doesn't look as good as a dunk from a small guy. But, hey, I like Dwight Howard. Yes, he did get a little weird. He surprised me. All of a sudden, he had tattoos everywhere. The season that he played with the Washington Wizards, we couldn't sit down and was laying on the sidelines of the games. That was absolutely hilarious. Happy that he won a title. I mean, you look at the stats, dude. Dwight is a Hall of Famer. You look at those stats, like that dude was probably the best center in the NBA for 4 or 5 years in a row. Like super solid.
He was a beast.
Until he went to the
dominant.
Lakers, and the Lakers, they ruined it. Anyways, I'm willing to take on Dwight Howard as a backup center with a short leash if he's willing to be part of the squad. I am. I think he checks all those boxes. Great rebounder. Good rim protector. Backup center. Bam. Check, check, check. Sign me up for some Dwight Howard, Calvin.
You're all in. You're already there, huh? How much are you willing to pay Dwight Howard?
I'm willing to pay him like a backup center. I'll give him a mid-level exception.
Mid-level exception?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, look,
Better than
I think
DeMarcus Cousins.
you're definitely not going to – this is not going to be the first move that they make, right? This would be like
He's a roster filler.
a safety reserve type move.
He's a roster filler.
Where, okay, we had a good draft. We made a good move in free agency. We don't have a ton of money left to spend, but here's this guy out there that, was a great player, like Charlie says, and could, bring something to the team. Let's, sign him to the cheap deal and see what happens. But I'm not in the camp of wanting Dwight Howard on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Watching some of those highlights against Sim Bular, shout out to Sim, first Indian-born player to ever play in the NBA. And, yes, he did play for the Sacramento Kings. But I saw some highlights of him versus Dwight, and I'm like, ooh, Dwight Howard, not so good. But I do think that Dwight can bring something to help this Sacramento Kings team, so I am willing to take him on. But, yes, like you said, he's not going to be my prized offseason acquisition. Yeah. He's a roster filler, needs to fit a need, needs to fit the team, and has to be willing to accept his role. I think that Dwight Howard the past few years has been through enough to humble himself, and I see him coming back to the NBA similarly to when I saw Carmelo Anthony come back to the Portland Trail Blazers, show that he still has some stuff left, and was willing to fit in that role and not be a starter because I'm a star and stars are starters.
Who would you rather have, Dwight Howard or DeMarcus Cousins?
Dwight Howard.
Wow. I didn't think you were going to say Dwight.
I'm not worried about Dwight Howard punching somebody in the locker room, Calvin.
That's fair.
I'm just not. I'm not. And Dwight Howard, I don't think has any bad blood with the Sacramento Kings. Not saying that Cousins is going to come in and just destroy everything, because I don't see that. I see the floor a lot higher with Howard than Cousins. Does that make sense?
I could see that.
Yeah, it would be interesting. It would be interesting. Okay, moving on here. Let's talk about Sasha Vezenkov. Been killing it, the newly named EuroLeague MVP, and yes, the Kings do own his draft rights, Calvin. He could be coming over to the NBA. He is currently playing in it's not the EuroLeague final, it is the what?
It's the Greek Basket League final.
He did suffer a knee injury, was helped off the court about 4 days ago. but that's a hard word to say. Miraculously, he's back. He played today, right? Or yesterday?
Played in
game 4?
Whether it was today or yesterday, I'm not 100% sure. But game 4 of I believe they're 1 win away from winning the Greek basket league.
Shout out to EJ for joining in here, and Charlie and Tom.
I want to say he played 20 minutes with this bone bruise in his knee, 7 points. So hard to tell I didn't watch a single second of it or even highlights of it, but so hard to tell if, he is really struggling with the knee, if he just is limited in minutes and so he didn't get his normal, looks or whatever. It's hard to say, but I will say it's got to be a tough position to be in for him, right? Because you're coming off probably the best year of your professional career. Mm-hmm. You win EuroLeague MVP. You've got a chance to win, it seems like, multiple championships in different leagues in Europe.
How many championships are there?
I have no idea. No, I'm not even going to fathom a guess at that.
Like the Rose Bowl,
but,
the Bourbon Bowl.
The Bourbon Bowl. Mud Dogs are going to win the Bourbon Bowl. But then on the right side, on the other side of that, you've got a chance to, again, win another championship, but you also are right on the verge of taking your career to a new height by joining the NBA. So do you risk further injuring yourself so that you can help your teammates that you've been battling with win this championship all year long? Or do you tell them, sorry, guys, I'm going to the NBA. I'm about to make some real money. Yeah. Peace. I'm out of here. I would probably do the same thing if I was him and I'd play, but it's got to be a very difficult career-minded decision. And exactly, how are you feeling if you're Sacramento? Yeah. It's a very tenuous. I'm trying to use my Mark Jones vocabulary today. Tenuous situation.
Bouncer says Sasha is another Bogey 2.0. Bogey was EuroLeague MVP.
He was.
I think he's had a pretty productive NBA season or NBA career. I think Sasha's going to be better than Bogey, but I'm happy if he is Bogey. Bogey was and is a good NBA basketball player. Calvin, what do you think it'll take to get Sasha to the NBA next season?
I think it's just going to take a little bit of convincing. I don't really see him going anywhere else, unless it's to keep playing in Europe. The Kings have his rights. I think that you lure him in with this is what all the great players in Europe have done over the past 10 years. Yeah. They've honed their games in Europe. They've won championships or MVPs, and that a wheelchair is a good answer. And then they've come over to the NBA and continued to have a lot of success there. I think you can tell them, look, you can follow in the footsteps of all these guys and become one of the next great European players to come over to the NBA.
So I'm guessing the Kings are probably in contact with Sasha, right? I don't know if Mike Brown has been over there yet to meet with him.
Well, he was there to watch him play.
Okay. So if you're Coach Brown and you're Monty and you're trying to recruit this guy to bring him to the Kings next year, of course, having the success you did this year probably helps your case, right? That you're not going to come over and help us win 15 games and all this. We want you to be a big part of this team. Are you making any promises to him in terms of positions? Are you saying, hey, we want you to be a starter? Hey, we want you to be a sixth man? Or just, hey, we think you can help this team and we're going to just place you where we feel is best?
I don't think you can make any guarantees like that at this point. Even if he was, going to be like a top 10 pick or something like that, I still don't think, given the season that the Kings just had, the fact that they've got a lot of really, really good players who are relatively early in their careers or entering their primes, you're not going to guarantee any sort of position or starting spot or minutes like that. I think you're just selling the fact that we're building something special here in Sacramento. You just got a taste of what it's like to win a title. Yeah. We want that same thing here in Sacramento. You can come be a part of that. Let's go. And then, get to training camp and see what it looks like. And if you play your way into the starting lineup, which I doubt that will happen, even if he is in Sacramento, then that's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah. Charlie says he wants $10 million. And Tom's got a good point here. What would you think about potentially trading Sasha and the first-round pick? We'll talk about that here in a second. The Kings are potentially interested in trading pick 24. You think there's any possibility that Sasha gets traded or plays with a team outside of Sacramento next year in the NBA?
I would have to guess that it's pretty low, but I don't know how other teams view Sasha and what other teams around the league value him as a player. I know that the Kings at least value him a little bit, right? Because they are wanting him to come over and play for them. But when you go around the rest of the league, in terms of making a trade with somebody like that, you have to find the right partner for that. And I just don't know of anybody, not saying that there aren't teams out there that would want him. There very well could be, but I have no idea what his value is, across the NBA.
Yeah, definitely something to keep your eyes on, something to keep track of. But at the same time, the cool thing is this is a way for the Kings to add more talent to the roster without really giving up a lot, right? Because you already have his rights. Hopefully they can work it out, and hopefully Sasha will join the Kings next season, because that would be exciting. All right, moving on here. In other news, Bobby Jackson is leaving the Stockton Kings to become an assistant coach with the Philadelphia 76ers. Apparently going to be working close with one of our guys, one of our ex-coaches, Yeager, who joined them on the coaching staff. Nick Nurse is their new head coach. We've heard potentially rumblings of an ex-Kings coach, Enrico Hines, maybe going to Philadelphia as well to join them. But Calvin, Bobby Jackson officially gone from Sacramento. What do you think about this?
Well, I'm just happy for him. First of all, he's done such a great job, in his coaching tenure with the Kings and doing a great job with the G League team, developing them and making them a winning team, first of all, right? I mean, that's the most important part. It's one thing to look at the G League as, the minor leagues are trying to develop guys so they're ready to play for the big league club, all of that. But at the end of the day, you still want to be competitive and win, and that's what they did. So you've got to give a lot of credit to Bobby, and I think he's well deserving of the opportunity. It stings a little bit just because he has such close ties to the franchise and was a great player for this team. You would have hoped that he could have ended up on the Kings bench instead of somebody else's, but I'm happy that he gets the opportunity, and I'm also happy that it means ultimately Jordi Fernandez is not leaving and they're replacing him with Bobby Jackson, who
so far so
could
good.
have done so far. I mean, there's not a head coaching position available, so I don't see Jordi going to be an assistant somewhere else. He wants to be a head coach. So I think it's a little bit of a good and a little bit of a bad, sort of thing.
Yeah, shout out to Bobby Jackson. Thank you so much for everything you've done for Sacramento. I'm never going to be mad about somebody leaving to upgrade their life and move up. So congratulations on the new job, Bobby. But at the same time, Calvin, I'm just going to lay this right here. Bobby Jackson will be back in Sacramento. You can mark my words. I don't know what and how, but he will be back in Sacramento. We know that Sacramento has his heart. Of course, played with the Kings, was gone for a while, came back. I think he goes out, he learns a little bit more, and I think he ends up back in Sacramento. I don't know if it's being an assistant coach, a head coach, or player development, something, but I do expect him to be back with the Kings in the future. I really do.
There you go. Mark it down.
Okay, in other news, let's talk about Davion. Davion Mitchell has been mentioned in quite a few rumors, mainly with the Phoenix Suns. We've talked about they are potentially willing to move on from point guard Chris Paul. We know they just hired a new head coach in Frank Vogel. But they have circled Davion Mitchell as a potential to replace Chris Paul in the point guard position. We know that they're dealing with money issues, right? Davion Mitchell doesn't make a lot of money, which is nice. But, Calvin, what are your thoughts here? You think any chance Davion Mitchell ends up with the Phoenix Suns? And if he does, what are the Kings going to get in return? Because we know they're not just going to give him up for
that's
nothing.
the big question, right? Is what if you're going to move Davion to any team, what are you getting in return? I think that it's got to be something good. Not that Davion Mitchell is at the point in his career where he can, sort of command high-level players coming back in return, but just from a roster standpoint, I mean, they don't have any other point guards if they get rid of him. Crap, I'm already blanking on his name. Who is Dellavedova is not coming back, right?
Yep.
If you give up Davion, then Fox is pretty much your only point guard. So
Fox and Len.
You're going to have to get
Monk.
Well, I don't really view Monk as a point guard, even though he does handle the ball. But we've already talked a lot about how important Davion can be to this team, whether he's a scorer or not. So they've got to be able to get something that's going to be pretty good in return if they're going to move him.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you do a swap of Davion Mitchell, Rashawn Holmes for Chris Paul. If you could figure something out, make something like that work.
I'm not even sure I would do that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that really helps the Kings. So I do not expect Davion Mitchell to go anywhere. I think he's going to stay with the Kings unless the Kings make a big upgrade and they trade for somebody like a Mikal Bridges or something like that, where you need to put a Davion Mitchell in there. But I think it's something to note, guys, as the Kings start to get better, as they start to have better and better players, you're going to hear rumors about their players and other teams being interested in their players.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't mean they're going to go anywhere. I mean, I'm sure every team in the NBA would love to add Luka Doncic to their roster. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. So I look at it as a positive thing. I look at it as teams are actually wanting our players now. This is great, Calvin. This is great.
It means, again, it's a good problem to have. It means you're moving on up in the world, in the NBA world.
Moving
ranks
on up. Speaking of moving on up, let's talk about Andrew Wiggins. He has been mentioned in some potential Kings rumors as a replacement for Harrison Barnes. I saw a couple mock trades. One of them did include Davion Mitchell and Rashawn Holmes for Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins is making quite a pretty penny.
That is a deal I would do.
Yeah?
Oh, yes.
All right, tell me about it.
Absolutely. Well, look, I don't know what you have to say. Andrew Wiggins, the exact type of player they need, the size, the versatility, defensive ability, 3-level scorer, good shooter, champion, learned how to win, going to Golden State after a pretty up and down early start to his career. I think that he would be a perfect fit for the Sacramento Kings. And if all it takes is giving up pick 24, Davion and Rashawn Holmes, absolutely I am doing that deal in a heartbeat. I have no idea why the Warriors do that deal, but I am 100% pushing that button if I'm the Kings.
And then you're bringing in Chris Paul and Dwight Howard as your backups?
No, screw those guys. I don't need them.
There you go. You heard it here. Screw those guys. I don't need them. That'd be interesting. I've always been a big fan of Andrew Wiggins, and I think he's got the best nickname in the NBA, Calvin. Maple Jordan. Always one of my favorites.
I'm not even sure if anybody calls him that anymore, but
they should. If he goes to the Kings, I'm going to be calling him that all the time.
He's not even the best Canadian player in the world anymore.
Who is?
Shea.
Oh, my God. Come on. Okay. Well, there you go. Calvin's on board. Bring Andrew Wiggins to Sacramento. All right, let's talk about the draft. The draft it's coming up, dude. We're 10 days away from the NBA draft. It will be June 22nd. The Kings have 3 picks in this year's draft. They have pick number 24 in the first round and 2 second-round picks, pick 38, which they acquired from Indiana, and pick 54, which is kind of weird because that's their own pick, Calvin. Our picks are late this year. This is nice. Right? I don't know. Maybe it's nice. Maybe it's
whole
not.
New world.
But 3 draft picks for the Kings. But before we get into there, let's talk about the top 3. Brandon Miller has edged his way into the number 2 projected overall pick, scooting past Scoot Henderson. Calvin, What are you thinking about this top three? You got Victor to San Antonio, Brandon to Charlotte, and Scoot to Portland.
I think it makes a whole lot of sense. Charlotte getting the number 2 pick, they're not going to take a point guard, right? I mean, you could argue, oh, well, maybe you can play the two of them together, but I think that taking a wing there is definitely the right move to do, especially with the whole Miles Bridges situation, who is another guy that's going to be a free agent this year that nobody's really talking about. I'm not sure if he's still restricted.
I thought they re-signed him.
No,
I'm
going
to look it up.
They did. But anyway, I don't, foresee any reasoning why Charlotte would take Scoot Henderson there. And then Portland, we've talked about them on the last show being just really interesting. At number 3, I could definitely see them trading that pick, in which case whichever team trades for the number 3 pick is going to have them draft Scoot Henderson for that team anyway. So it's to be expected, I would say, at this point.
Yeah, it's looking like he is a free agent this year. That's wild, Calvin. It's crazy. What are you going to give up for him?
Bridges?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think you have to give up anything.
What are you willing to pay him?
That's really interesting. Really, really interesting.
Would you want a guy like that on your squad? Or are you just like, nope?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. First of all, I don't know enough about the situation in terms of his legal troubles. I know a little bit, but I would, if I'm
What's up, Christian?
going to be a franchise that's going to take a risk or a flyer on him, I would have to do way more homework than I've done on it right now.
He doesn't even show up on their salary cap.
Yeah, I know. It's wild.
Because he was a free agent last year, right?
Yes.
And
he bet on himself.
yeah.
Had a phenomenal season.
Yeah.
Stood to make, probably $20 million or whatever.
No, probably $200 million total.
Well, per year. And then,
and he was restricted, right?
Yeah.
And no one offered him a contract.
Yep.
So they didn't match it. And so now he's free agent.
Yeah.
Wow. Keep an eye on that one.
Right?
That is an interesting move. That is a really interesting move. Maybe San Antonio makes a play for him.
I think you could make an argument for a lot of teams. In terms of a fit standpoint, you can make an argument for a lot of teams to want to go after him.
I don't know if I want a guy like that on my roster, Calvin. I really like what the Kings got going for themselves. They got a bunch of good guys that fit together. We don't have any problems. And I'm talking about bringing in Dwight Howard and Chris Paul. But hey, legal problems is a whole nother deal.
The Kings are in a situation right now where they don't need to add a number 1 scoring option. That's not, I'm not saying don't add scoring or don't add somebody that can score. I'm saying they don't need to go out and get a guy who it's his responsibility or his job to score 25 a game. That's not what they need.
So you don't want KD?
Different situation. KD's not going to average 25 a game on the Suns.
I don't want KD.
He won't.
I don't want KD either. All right, fast forward here. Kings projected number 24 in the first round, taking Dariq Whitehead, shooting guard out of Duke. What do you think about that?
I think it's
Chris Murray
definitely in play. Definitely in play. The Kings are in a new position, right? They're not. They have to wait and see how things play out in front of them now. Yeah. In terms of the draft, in terms of free agency. I mean, yes, they're probably going to have a list of guys when it comes to free agency that they're going to go out right away and try to sign. But if it falls through or whatever, you're going to have backup plans. And the draft, they're going to have probably 10 to 12 backup plans because you're picking later in the first round. You've got a bunch of different options in terms of where you can go with positions on this roster. Areas of need. Do they draft a center? Do they draft a point guard? Do they draft a wing? Do they look for a pure defender? Do they look for something that's more than that? They're in a unique situation compared to where they've been in years past. So there are a lot of different things that are in play here for them, I would say, including trading the pick altogether.
I think the Kings trade this pick, Calvin. I think they do. I think the Kings have shifted into win-now mode, and they need win-now players. I think they've realized that this team lacked some size. And then, with Harrison Barnes becoming a free agent, I think they've kind of peaked, or they feel like they've gotten the most that they could out of a team with him at that position. So maybe they look to upgrade that position. I think they trade this pick. And, of course, they cannot trade it until draft day. Mm-hmm. I believe they have to draft somebody for another team and then trade the rights of that to the other team because of the Kevin Huerter trade, and they owe a draft pick next season. You can't trade consecutive picks. But I do expect the Kings to trade this pick. I think this is packaged. And, dude, I've said this a few times already, so, hey, I'm going to say it again. I think they package this pick with Rashawn Holmes, and I think it's shipped out on draft day.
I think that's the best case scenario for them. If there was a first, plan A or a first option of how to attack this offseason, it would start with exactly that. We're going to trade the pick and Rashawn Holmes for a player that's going to come in and immediately either start or play big-time minutes and have a big-time role on this team, and then we'll fill out the rest of the roster in free agency.
Who would that be for you,
If
Calvin?
that happens, I don't know.
Is that John Collins? Is that Ben Simmons? Who is that guy?
Honestly, after hearing this Andrew Wiggins news, that would be my number one selection right now. Seriously, in terms of all the guys that are available or considered to be available, I think he would be as good or better than anybody else. I would definitely take him over John Collins. There's free agents out there like Jeremy Grant who are available.
Carter Jr. What do you think about a guy like that?
I like Wendell Carter Jr., but I don't want to put a true center next to Sabonis in the starting lineup.
You want Sabonis to play that
even though Wendell Carter actually has been able to extend his range a little bit, and he's become a better three-point shooter. I was a bit surprised, actually, to see his numbers the last time I looked at them. But I still think that he's more often than not
35% from three,
and that's on what, like four attempts. Yeah, four attempts a game. That's not bad.
That's not bad at all.
But I still think that if you're gonna play him, starters minutes or a big time role, he's gonna be in the post too much for that pairing to work.
Yeah. Could you see the Kings? I mean, I see Charlie here in the chat. Shout out to Charlie. Always appreciate Charlie and all of his insights. He says that maybe the Kings use the 24th pick to move off of Rashawn Holmes' contract and become players in free agency. Could you see them go after a guy like Draymond Green?
I could see it because, again, I feel like we've had this talk before. There's a lot of reasons to think that Draymond Green as a player is a good fit for this team. But how much money are you willing to spend on him? How many years do you give him?
Yeah.
Are you willing to put up with all the other bullshit that comes with Draymond Green? Does that help the team or does it hurt them?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Does he fit? Does he fit on this team from a pure basketball perspective?
From a basketball standpoint, yeah, he does fit on this team.
Playing the four next to Sabonis, and you have so you would be Fox, Huerter, Murray, Green, Sabonis.
Yeah,
that's a good basketball team.
I do think that's a good
top four
basketball team.
Top four in the West. Enough to cut your hair?
Maybe.
Okay.
I mean, I think it makes them slightly better than they were this year. I don't think that move alone means they're going to contend for an NBA championship. But
yeah, I'm not on the Draymond Green bandwagon. I do not want him on this squad, but I do like to imagine different types of players and what they would do and what they would fit and be like. We haven't seen Draymond on a non-Golden State Warriors squad, so it'd be interesting to see what his real impact is, not next to two of the greatest shooters of all time. So,
who would you rather have, Dylan Brooks or Draymond?
Probably Dwight Howard, Calvin. No, I don't know. That's a really, really tough question. Probably Dylan Brooks, because I wouldn't start him, and I'm not worried about him punching a teammate in the locker room.
You're not?
No.
I kind of am.
Has he done that?
No, not that I know of, but
okay. Like, for me, Dylan Brooks, and I don't like Dylan Brooks, but I think that every team needs that kind of knucklehead, right? I'm trying to remember the quote I heard this week that was like, every team can have one knucklehead, but you can't have two. So once you have two, it turns into a circus or something like that. It just becomes too much. Dylan Brooks could be the agitator guy that's on your squad where it's like, okay, if somebody's absolutely killing us, we can send him out there and he can deal with that guy, whether it's trying to shut him down defensively, whether it's getting the guy ejected or himself getting ejected, flustering or frustrating the other player. But at the same time, if Dylan Brooks gets ejected, like, that's not hurting my team. You know? I don't feel the same way about Draymond Green, because Draymond Green has had such a big impact on his teams that, yes, he can be the enforcer, he can be that guy. But when he's out, his team is hurting from not having him. You wouldn't know that from the Kings series, but you look back in, like, the finals and, like, all these other issues, like, he's big impact on the team. Only reason I would, but I wouldn't want either of those guys on my team, honestly.
Yeah, it's I agree. Overall, those are not the types of players that I want. But I do.
You want to be stabbed in the left side or the right side,
Yeah.
Calvin?
I will say this about Dylan Brooks. He did himself no favors this season with not just the talking and the, getting into it with Shannon Sharp on the sidelines and that low blow hit to Donovan Mitchell in the crotch. None of that stuff helps his cause by any means.
Yeah.
And of course, his actual play doesn't help either, right? Because, and I'm not talking about defense, I'm talking about shooting. Every year he's been in the league, he's attempted more threes, and every year his shooting percentage has gone down.
I got to pull up his stats.
So that stuff really, really hurts him. This is the only thing I will say about Dylan Brooks. That there was a big narrative around the Kings this season that they needed that type of player. And Draymond's name got brought up a lot, right? They need toughness. They need attitude. They need all of this stuff. An enforcer, a guy who's really, really good at, versatile defender, can guard a lot of different positions. That's something they need. I wonder what Dylan Brooks would look like if he was with a different organization. The Grizzlies are literally imploding right now. They didn't have a lot of veteran leadership. They had a great guy, one guy in Steven Adams, and it seemed like none of the guys in the locker room wanted to listen to him.
Yeah.
Which, again, is not helping his cause. But I always thought Taylor Jenkins was a really good coach. Maybe he didn't have a good grip on the locker room. If you were to take Dylan Brooks out of that and put him in a different situation with a good organization that's got a good culture surrounding it, has a defensive-minded coach that could use him in to the best of his ability in certain situations, and you told him, look, we don't want you to shoot 6 threes a game. We've got the guys for that.
Yeah.
I don't know what he would look like. It might actually be a positive thing for a team.
Maybe you could put some tape over his mouth.
All of that said, I'm not willing to risk the experiment for what that would look like. But I do think people are very quickly throwing him out like a piece of garbage when he hasn't maybe gotten to that point yet.
Yeah, I would love to have Brook Lopez. I don't know if he's available.
Oh, 100% I would take Brook
see
Lopez.
Some people in here saying that, shout out to Gilbert. Gilbert says Memphis has bigger problems than Dylan Brooks. If anything, he was the scapegoat. Calvin, who would you rather have on your team right now, Ja Morant or Dylan Brooks?
Well, I mean, I'd rather have Ja Morant as a player. That's an easy one, but I don't know. That's a tough call.
Right? That is a tough call. Robert Williams, would love to pick him up. Don't know if that's going to happen. Jeremy Grant, Andrew Wiggins, a lot of good guys mentioned here. It's going to be an exciting offseason for the Sacramento Kings. I think they've finally shifted into win now mode. We might see a couple swings for the fences. Hopefully we don't strike out. But, hey, I'm just happy that we're moving in the right direction. And I'm excited for next year. I think we're going to have a hell of a season. Calvin, we haven't touched on second-round draft picks. 38 and 54. You know my thoughts on second-round draft picks. What are yours?
Well, they're like playing the lottery, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, you take a chance, on a guy that could end up being a big-time player.
Finals MVP, Jokic.
Finals MVP, or a Hall of Famer like Jokic, Ginobili, Draymond. But most of the time, they end up, not making your team altogether. So you still make the selections. I think.
You know what pick Jokic was?
There's an interesting, I think he was 40 or 41?
41. Wow. So we could get him at 38 this year.
Maybe.
No problem.
There is somebody, if they're still around that late in the draft, which I think there's a very good chance they will be, a guy who was at one point the number one rated high school player in the entire country, had a big fall from grace. You know who I'm talking about?
I do. Imani Bates.
Imani Bates.
From Eastern Michigan. He's projected right now at number 46. Would love to grab him at 38, Calvin.
I think if he's available, that would be a great quote-unquote project, or, the Kings are in a position now where they could actually take somebody like that.
Yeah.
And if he ends up being, playing to his true potential,
I like that.
That could be a huge, huge win for a second-round pick.
I actually really, really like that a lot, Calvin. That is a great point. I haven't heard that name in a while.
And
Imani
yes, Harry
Bates.
Giles was also the number one player in the country.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of Harry Giles too. Interesting here, Calvin. So it looks like the Bulls and the Sixers both forfeited their second-round picks due to tampering. That's pick 57 and 58. So that's kind of an L right there. Not for those franchises, but I would say for the draft picks, right? 2 less guys are going to get drafted this year. That's kind of unfortunate.
It is. I mean, guys will still make rosters, other ways, but being signed in the offseason after the draft. But, yeah, I haven't really given any thought to that. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it's almost like if you're tampering with a player, your second-round pick should go to the team that you tampered against, right?
It's not a bad idea.
Seems like this is a loss for the draft picks, not so much the teams. But, yeah, interesting there. Well, I think that pretty much wraps us up on this show. Calvin, unless you have any other topics or things you want to talk about.
We'll save it for another day. There's going to be a lot to talk about here very, very soon.
Yeah, that is very, very true. Well, another great episode. Thanks for everyone for hanging out. About an hour and 40 minutes for this show. Good to get back in the groove here. Let's try and do another podcast next week, Calvin, if we get some news to talk about, or maybe we can do a quick one after the Ja Morant suspension is announced. So you know what that means, guys. Make sure you smash up that like button, hit the subscribe button, and if you want to know when that next episode is going to be, hit that notification cowbell, because it'll let you know every time we put out a new video or schedule a new stream. Thank you all so much for joining in on this show. You guys are all awesome. You guys rock, especially all my Royal family members out there, Alfie and Brian. I see you guys. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Calvin, you're holding the trophy.
Shout out Denver Nuggets. Congratulations, world champions.
There you go. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Man, I know we haven't seen Kings action in a couple weeks. Dude, this podcast got me pumped, Calvin. I'm excited for this offseason. I'm excited for the Sacramento Kings. And who knows, maybe we'll find ourselves in the NBA Finals next year.
Oh, man.
You heard it here
I'm
first.
excited now.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Have an awesome day. Have an awesome week. See you all. Peace. Go Kings.